everybody has a smoke detector in their house, and everybody wants it to work, right? If there's smoke in your house, you want the smoke detector to alert your alarm system, to alert the firemen, and you want to be safe. What happens is sometimes that smoke detector goes off every single time you put chicken in the oven, which is what happened for me. Like, there was a month when the firefighters were like, here we are again, right? Yeah. And so that's kind of what therapy helps you with. It helps differentiate between actual danger and perceived danger.
Welcome to Chapters by Propel, where we take a peek into the real lives of trailblazing community women with a mix of honesty, humor, and inspiration. I'm your host, Melanie Kuehl, and this is just part of the story.
Welcome to Chapters by Propel. I'm your host, Melanie Kuehl, and I am so excited today to have with me Regine Ashkenazie, who is an anxiety therapist. She works with children and adults and families, and I am so excited to find out everything she has to say. We have a lot to cover, so hopefully we're going to get through it.
Thanks for having me. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. So I know you do a lot, but before we get to what you do now, I always like to go back a little and just find out about like who you were growing up or as a kid. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Amazing. I grew up here in Brooklyn. My maiden name is Regine Seton. I was always kind of studious, a little bit nerdy, my kids say. Not that they knew me then. And I think I went kind of into this field because I was always like a helper. Like, I always wanted to do good. I wanted to help people. And so that's kind of how I found myself studying social work and going into therapy.
And did you, as a kid, like, were you very social? Did you love being with people, like, in addition to being studious?
Totally. I was a very social kid, had a lot of friends, really loved being out and doing fun stuff.
Okay. So now you went through school, you were very studious. When did you figure out, like, you wanted to be in some area where you'd be helping people?
So I guess in college, I went to college I was a psych major from the get-go. And I guess I was pretty focused.
So you knew something in psychology from when you went to college?
Totally.
Okay. What degree did you graduate with?
So I ended up graduating with a major in psychology, and then I went to graduate school for social work. Primarily because it was a 2-year program as opposed to psych, which takes, 7 years between studying, and I was already married when I started college. I got married at 18 and then went to college. So by the time I was done with graduate school, it was kind of like it was time to be done with school, which was how I got there.
6 years of college.
Correct.
And was your husband supportive this whole time of what you wanted to do?
He totally was supportive. At the time, we were also trying to get pregnant, and I graduated Columbia School of Social Work 9 months pregnant. Wow. So that was fun. It kind of worked out.
Yes, that did work out. Can you tell us a little bit about what's involved in training to be a social worker? Because I know it's not only going to class.
Right. So graduate programs are generally both coursework and practicum. So I would do every semester, I was placed in a different internship. So it was 4 different internships over the course of the 2 years. And it's really just learning kind of what you like, what you don't like. I don't know that at the time I knew that I was going to go into private therapy. I worked with older people, I worked in a hospital, kind of just getting my feet wet with a lot of different things.
Okay, so now you graduate with your master's, you are 9 months pregnant, so what happened next?
So I gave birth in June, and my plan was to figure out by September what I wanted to do, and what I wanted to do was stay home with my baby. So that's what I did for I'd say 10 years. Had my babies, really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed being home with them and taking care of them kind of full time.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's such a special time, and you only get it once, and I feel like it's so amazing that you were able to finish your degree and then have the babies.
I was very lucky.
It worked out perfectly time-wise.
Yes.
Okay, so what made you decide that you were ready to start something?
So I think it was always in the back of my head that I wanted to do something. And so I started really kind of small in my basement. I would see patients one-on-one. I did some trainings. I took some refresher trainings. I got trained in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what I still do, and DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, just different modalities of therapy that were interesting to me, and had some really great mentors and started working, kind of started slowly.
Okay, so I want to talk about 10 things you said. One, I always say if I had $1 for everyone who started in the basement, most of
%1,000,000.
the theme here is, which I love, that everything grows so organically. And it's not like you started with 50 clients or you started with this huge office, but that you like start in the basement and grow in a very organic way. So I think that's amazing. My other question for you is, a lot of people come to Propel asking like, how do they find clients? Because there's a lot of fear around, okay, I know I want to start something, whatever it is, but like, how am I going to find that first client? So do you remember finding your like first, if not first client, your first group of clients, or how you went about doing that?
That's such a good question. I don't think I've ever even thought of that. Like, how did it go from 0 to 1? Which is so interesting. And I'm not sure that I know the answer to that. I think things happen organically. I think you start talking about what you want to do and then you're doing it, right? So like, I think it's really word of mouth. For me, for sure, with this was word of mouth, at least in the beginning. I was saying that I'm a therapist, an anxiety therapist, and at first, my fees were lower than they are now and probably lower than most people expected. And so that's how I built this.
And how did you decide you were going to focus on anxiety?
I think I've always wanted to work with anxiety. It's something that I saw a lot in my patients, and therapy is very effective for people with anxiety. So that's very rewarding. It's not all I do. I mean, as a community therapist, I definitely often see families. I often see, I often have different roles, but anxiety is a lot of fun to work with.
Okay, so I'm actually going to ask you a question that's maybe very simple, but we all use the word anxiety all the time.
Amazing.
Like, we're talking about holidays, and I'm like, I'm having so much anxiety. Our kids are going to school, they're like, oh, they have to put on their uniform, they're having anxiety. So how would you define anxiety, even though we throw the word around all the time?
So everybody has anxiety. Anxiety is an emotion, and it is what keeps us safe. It's the reason why we don't walk in the middle of the street and get hit by a car. It's the reason why we leave a burning building, right?
Yeah.
It's our body's way of keeping us safe. So anxiety, not only does everybody have anxiety, anxiety is also a really helpful emotion. I think that we use it kind of more as a slang, like but I think people kind of are anxious from things in their lives when there's stressors in their lives. I think that their anxiety levels are heightened, and that's okay and kind of normal and normative. What I work on is when that anxiety kind of gets in the way of you living the life that you want to live. And that's when people land in my office. It's when their anxiety is debilitating them, or their anxiety, what I like to say, and I use this a lot, is that it's kind of like a smoke detector. Everybody has a smoke detector in their house, and everybody wants it to work, right? If there's smoke in your house, you want the smoke detector to alert your alarm system, to alert the firemen, and you want to be safe. What happens is sometimes that smoke detector goes off every single time you put chicken in the oven, which is what happened for me. Like, there was a month when the firefighters were like, here we are again, right? Yeah. And so that's kind of what therapy helps you with. It helps differentiate between actual danger and perceived danger.
First of all, that metaphor is amazing, and I love it. I feel like the smoke detector is a great visual, and I love a great visual.
Okay, good.
So I guess my question then is, and we can talk very generally about this because I know that for every single client in every age group, I'm sure it looks different. But like, just talking about, let's say, our children, like, how do you know whether what your kids are experiencing is like normal in the range of anxiety, or is this a time when I should call you or call someone because I'm like, this is like outside what I think I can handle?
So perfect. There are so many things that I want to say about this.
Great.
First, I always like to tell people, Google like child milestones, right? Like, what is normative for a child, my child's age, right? Separation from mom is normal at 3 years old.
Yeah.
Not so much at 12 and 13. Social anxiety, really normal for preteens and teenagers. Not so much as you get older. So that's like the first, is just understanding what phase of life your child is in and what to expect. And then I always say, give it some time, right? And kind of watching and kind of just observing. But if you have the inclination of like, I want to find out if this is getting in the way of my child's development, give us a call or give someone a call.
Yeah.
right? That's usually the time. If that's what your intuition is telling you, it doesn't hurt to have a phone conversation. I've had plenty of phone conversations where I've told parents, all right, monitor and call me back should you think it got worse.
That's so nice. And it's a great idea, really, even just to make the phone call, because I feel like people feel so much anxiety around, but anxiety around even calling a therapist or social worker.
100%. The other thing that I kind of want to say is like, know what you're looking for. And so like if there were one message I could kind of say is like, not all therapy is the same. So what we do, and again, we can talk about kind of how I built this maybe afterwards, but what we do is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is evidence-based to help with anxiety. And what we do is exposure. Exposure is the name of the game with anxiety. So for anybody kind of watching and listening, like just making sure that your child or you are getting kind of an exposure-based therapy, because that's what is evidence-based.
Yeah. No, and I think people are worried about like, what does therapy look like and what does that mean? And does that mean that my child's going to need this till the end of time, which I think also
Amazing. So CBT is definitely meant to be a short-term therapy.
Yeah.
Not that all of my patients are short-term, but it really is meant to be like an 8 to 16 week skills-building, exposure-based therapy model.
Well, and that's what I think about therapy as. I think about it as being tools versus being a crutch. And I think that, I mean, I was a teacher before I did any of this or before I was a coach. And so I felt like I watched a lot of students go through either therapy, CBT, but really watching them find the tools they needed in order to function in the best way possible.
Exactly. That's always the goal.
Okay, so you found this niche. You decided this is what you were going to do. You were in the basement for the first little while, and then what happened?
And then I decided I really wanted more training. I decided that to do this well, I wanted, the right supervision for what I was doing. So I took a job in Long Island at Long Island's Behavioral Psychology in Cedarhurst. My first cousin actually is the psychologist that runs the practice. Her name's Dr. Galante, also Regine. And I worked there 3 days a week for 2 years, really just getting the right supervision. I still saw patients in my house, but I was also kind of seeing patients there. And at the end of that 2 years, I think it was 2 years, at the end of that, I was like, we need to bring this model to Brooklyn. It was very apparent to me that this kind of real evidence-based CBT therapy didn't really exist in the community. And the combination of like community therapists doing evidence-based work was so exciting to me. So about 1.5 years ago, I opened my space, and it is the Brooklyn branch of Long Island's Behavioral. I've partnered with Dr. Galante, and we run the space together, and we're kind of doing the therapy, but also really training therapists.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
My gosh, so now how many therapists do you have now working with you?
So currently I have 3 therapists and an intern, and we have a postdoc starting in October, so that'll be 4, and 5 altogether. And really just building community women, kind of like, what Propel does. Yeah, exactly. But allowing them to kind of make that work-life balance and get really great training without having to go far away, which is a perk that I didn't think of when I was opening the space. I was just like, who's going to take my after-school patients that I can't see? Which was the impetus behind opening that. But it's really been great being able to mentor and help other young women figure this out.
Okay, so now from a business perspective, how is it managing other people? Because I think that's also something we talk about a lot, going from being just by yourself, doing your own thing, running your own business. It's all about sort of you, but you also, some things are easy about just being you, and I think some things are more challenging. So how have you found it managing a team?
So pluses and minuses. I think it is a huge responsibility that I do take seriously in terms of making sure that, first of all, my patients are getting the best care. So there's tons of supervision by us. You are getting 3 hours of supervision and team meetings and one-day trainings and professional development, right? Like that's important to me. And I have a responsibility to my hires, right? Like to make sure that they're getting the most out of their time with us, and making sure that they get all of the skills and the tools that they need to be the best therapist that I can, help them become. And from an economic standpoint, which I think is interesting, it's not necessarily, at least yet for me, more successful. Like I'm not making more money doing this way yet.
Yeah.
The hope is obviously that I will. But it takes time to build. Like anything that we care about, to do it right, takes time, energy, effort.
Yes. That's another theme we see all the time, that the consistency and the building, you're not going to see things overnight, but that if you're doing it the right way and with care and attention, that hopefully, God willing, it turns out the way it's supposed to.
Yes, exactly.
And I also think it's so awesome that you're trying to bring this kind of therapy to Brooklyn, because again, everything local makes things easier. When Grace talked about her gymnastics, she said, like, we don't have a gymnastics
100%.
program unless it's here where it's easy, kids are in school for long days. Like, how do we make this accessible for everyone?
100%. And I think that there's also the concept of like your therapist understanding where you're from.
Yes.
In a way that we can.
Yes.
And I think that that's definitely another benefit.
Well, and to that point, I think people go to therapists who aren't in the community, who don't understand the community, and I think sometimes that is what turns people off also. Not always, because I know there are excellent therapists who do all kinds of things, but in order to understand being Jewish, being part of a community, there is a piece of that that makes us different than maybe someone who has no knowledge of the way that someone in the community might live.
100%.
Okay, you also talked about work-life balance, which is another hot topic. So I love the fact that you graduated and really made a choice to stay home for 10 years with your kids, because that was something that you wanted. And again, like, everyone makes their own choices and should be able to. Once you went back to work, a lot of people, again, clients at Propel will say, like, I don't know how I'm going to cook dinner. I don't know how I'm going to be with my family. How do I do that while working? So how did the work-life balance go for you? What did it look like? Are there lessons in that that you could share with us?
So I think it's still a work in progress, like everything else. I think what I generally say, and I know that people are like, you just do everything. I'm kind of like, everything gives a little. I'm a person who kind of does better when I have a million things to do than when I have 3, for sure. That's my personality. But I think that it's like the knowledge that everything's going to give a little. Like, home life is going to give a little. Work life is going to give a little. Your personal life is going to give a little. And kind of like making all those things work. And I think that at different times, they work in different ways. Like, I think there are times when you can give more to your business and times when your family needs you more, and kind of times when you have to take a step back and be like, what am I doing for me? So I think it's definitely a constant balance.
And it helps to come from that psychology background when you're assessing all of these things.
For sure.
But no, it is, I mean, everyone has a lot going on. So I think that's the challenge. But what you said, which I agree, is that, like, on a busy day, so much more gets done, at least for me, than on a day when, like, it's 100%. Completely open. And I do think that there's something to be said, which I wonder what you'd say about this, about, like, having systems or being organized in terms of planning a week, a month, or anything like that. Are you someone who finds yourself to be organized?
I'm totally not, so I love that you said it like that, because I don't think you have to be an organized person to make it work.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not an organized person, and yet it kind of still all gets done.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Along the way, so now we're talking about the last, like, let's say 10 years that you've been in practice. Can you think of any points when you had challenges? Whether it's a specific challenge you could speak about, or a moment when you said, like, maybe this just isn't going to work and I should throw in the towel. I think that, again, we all look at people who are successful and say, like, oh, like, it must have always been this way. And sometimes what stops us is either the not feeling ready or just the idea of, like, okay, well, that didn't work, so I guess now I should quit.
So for me, it's more like, again, I went into this kind of from a helping perspective, and when I have challenges in work, patient challenges, things that maybe I could have done better, or maybe I want to redo, right? And you don't always get that chance. Those are the things that make me anxious. And there are plenty of times where I'm like, oh my God, is this worth it, right? But I think overall, just kind of taking a step back and noticing you got to look big picture, right, is helpful for me.
Yes. And what do you love about what you do? You said, like, you find it so rewarding. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you love about what you're doing?
So it's totally so much fun. You get to meet your patients when they're kind of struggling and really help them kind of pretty quickly learn the skills to navigate life better. Whether it's a child with social anxiety who is now, or a teenager who is now able to go to parties or able to socialize with friends and really kind of sees their life looking better than it did, or whether it's a child who had selective mutism, wasn't talking to anybody, and now they can speak in school and to family members. Like, it's very, very rewarding. I think treating anxiety is also very creative because you get to do all these exposures to all these different things, and so you're always kind of thinking creatively. And I have a patient with harm OCD who is scared of using knives, and so we bring in knives and we chop things and we make salads, and now, like, this is a child who can now kind of be around knives, right?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I guess what I also want to know is, like, do you have a hard time separating now these kids or these families who you're very invested in, and then sort of compartmentalizing that and going back to life?
I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty good at, like, doing the best that I can while I'm in that space and then really leaving it. And I think that was one of the benefits of kind of getting out of my house, was that there was definitely a separation of, like, this is when I'm working and this is when I'm home. I don't want to ever not care about my patients, right? I wouldn't be a very good therapist if that were the case. And do I have some sleepless nights where I'm thinking about how something is going or can go better? For sure. But I think overall, hopefully, we do work that we're proud of. And so...
Well, and I think that's also part of the profession, must be the ability to set boundaries and to know, like, this is over and you're doing the best you can with it, and then to...
For sure.
Come back tomorrow, next week, and do it again.
For sure.
What kinds of maybe general suggestions do you have for either for us or for parents who are dealing with feelings of anxiety or kids who have feelings of anxiety? Like, I know this is very general.
No, but it's a good question. I think my number one kind of take-home piece would be anxiety is not dangerous. It feels uncomfortable. And really helping your child differentiate between those two, right? We can do things when we feel uncomfortable. And really, the goal of anxiety therapy and the goal for parents is going to be pushing your child, again, within reason, to do things that feel uncomfortable for them and helping them see that they can be uncomfortable and be okay.
So I want to ask you another question about boundaries, which is, we live in a very tight-knit community, and you live here and you're also working here, and you are dealing with a lot of confidential information. You're finding out a lot about families. Is it challenging setting boundaries when you sort of live where you work?
So I think that because of the confidential nature of my business, that's of utmost importance for me. And I always will start every new patient with, like, really everything that they say in my office is confidential, aside from a court subpoena or my feeling like someone's life is in danger. I am sworn to secrecy. My kids don't know who my patients are. My husband doesn't know who my patients are. And what I generally tell people is, I will follow your lead. I will definitely see you in Uri's, and if you smile, I'll smile. If you say hi, I'll say hi, right? I definitely kind of meet patients where they are. And sometimes, I'll be out with my husband and someone will come over and be like, oh my God, you don't know how much he helped my child. And that's wonderful and lovely. But no, he didn't know how much I helped your child, because that stays in work. And that's why it's great to have a team and have supervision, because within that, you can find, like, kind of those outlets of expressing, like, if something is challenging or, just surprising. So I have the outlet to do that within the confines of work, and then I'm able to really
keep it all.
Yeah.
And
yep.
I know, and I'll say it's true. I found you because someone who I know very well told me that you're wonderful. And when I started saying to you, and she said this, and she said that, you really just like, yeah, okay. And I was like, come on, Regine. And
right. I can't even
you
say
wouldn't give me anything. You wouldn't even say, yes, they're right. Unbelievable.
I definitely will not.
You were very good about keeping it quiet.
Good.
And as far as working with the team, I guess that is also a nice thing to know, that within your group, you're able to bounce ideas off of each other, so that it's not like you're sitting alone with this information, but that in a team meeting or with other colleagues, you can sit and say, like, this is what's going on, and know that you're all keeping that
yes.
within. And then my other piece of that question is, do your clients generally respect your boundaries in terms of, like, we're not going to text like we're friends, like, we're not going to call you for like a 5-minute update, or maybe you do, I don't know.
So it's definitely within boundaries, right? Like, I am definitely a person who, like, if you are having something with your child and need my immediate assistance, there is a way to get through to me. But I am not going to answer kind of every question. And sometimes if someone will text me and I just kind of leave it unread, that is enough of a
indicator that we'll talk to you next time.
Exactly.
So in thinking about what you do, are there any skills or personality traits that you feel like someone who is like this is someone who would fit really well into this field?
I think it's anyone who cares to do this work. I think that skills and being a good therapist can be taught. And it's just about really having the want and the desire to learn. It's definitely reading intensive, right? There's a lot of information to kind of learn, but as long as you're curious and it's something that you want.
It sounds like you did a lot of learning.
I definitely
A lot of learning, a lot of training.
I definitely do, and I still do, and I think that's what, that's something that I love about this, is that I'm always growing and learning new things and, improving what I do.
Yes, I know. I love that too. And it's always so interesting, and there are always new things coming out.
For sure.
So I feel like that's so interesting also, that you think like everything's been said and done before, and then there's like a different angle.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. If someone's listening or watching who says like, this sounds amazing, I would want to do this, my daughter would want to do this, like what advice would you give someone who's, let's say, in high school or in college who thinks this sounds awesome?
Reach out. I'm always happy to help people. I'm always happy to guide. I've had plenty of people who have reached out and said, what do you think of this degree? What do you think of that degree? What's the best way to do this? Always happy to give my opinion.
That's so kind.
Yeah.
And it's nice because it's good for me to know too. At Propel, we also set people up with mentors, people who call and say, like, I'm not sure what I want to do. And we go through like what you might want to do and then connect them with people like you who are open to saying like, this is what it looks like in real life.
Yeah.
Is this something that sounds interesting? Okay, so the podcast is called Chapters because you talked about a lot of your chapters. I feel like everyone really goes through so many different chapters in their lives. So the question I always like to end with is, like, what do you foresee being your next chapter?
That's a great question. I think really building out where I am right now is definitely the next focus, is really having a larger team, seeing more patients, helping more people. That's where we're at.
It sounds like you're on your way, Regine.
Yeah, I hope so.
So I really couldn't wait to talk to you. I feel like everything you're doing is so important and meaningful, and I think applies to all of us, like you said. I think we all have feelings, and like you said also, anxiety is a range from 1 to a million, and at different points we're all feeling like we're dealing with something. And it sounds to me, from the people I know who will remain nameless, that you are really excellent at what you do.
Thank you.
I love that you're training other people and that you're going to have a team of people helping us here. And I really just want to thank you, because I know how busy you are, for coming and talking about it and opening yourself up to anyone who does want to call you and find out more about being in social work or therapy.
Thank you, Melanie. This was so fun.
Thank you so
much. It really was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us at Chapters by Propel. If you're ready for the next chapter in your career journey, give us a call. We're happy to help you with career coaching, navigating graduate school, or leveling up your business with some business strategy and consulting. You can email us at info@thepropelnetwork.org. Special thanks to Melanie Kuehl, our amazing host, to Hit Central Studios, and the amazing team at Propel. Good night.